Doing something like this is really hard because literally I love everything about this show. And to put one in last place almost feels like a disservice. Guys, before we dive into today's video, don't forget I'm trying to reach my goal of 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you would help me out by hitting that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. I post mostly about Demon Slayer, but I also review a lot of animes that I'm watching throughout the year, so if you want to check it out, please do. Turn on that notification bell so you get notified whenever I make new videos. If I get to 30k subscribers by October, I have a couple new animes that air in October that I want to react to on YouTube, so we're almost there. We're at like 23,000. But I've been doing a lot of ranking videos, and again, these are all based off of favorites. There's no objective fact behind any of these, but I really want to rank the arcs within Demon Slayer. I am going to cover all of the arcs. However, I'll put a spoiler warning when I get to the stuff that hasn't been animated because, spoiler alert, they're pretty high on my list, so I'll let you all know. I'm not going to talk super in depth. Like, the spoiler alert's going to be like very overarching basic spoilers where you're not really going to get much from it. I'm just going to talk about a little bit why I like them, but I'm not going to get into specifics. And if I do, I will put another big spoiler warning so you know. But this is something I had to sit and think about because man, oh man, it truly feels a little bit like a disservice to try and rank the arcs within Demon Slayer because I love it all. But for the sake of YouTube and having content, let's do this. Also, one final disclaimer before I get into it, I will not be ranking the mini arcs within Season 1. Technically, Season 1 was one overarching arc called the Tanjiro Kamado Unwavering Resolve arc. I am going to count it just as that in this video for the sake of time. I probably will actually rank all of the mini arcs in Season 1 in its own separate video because it's like the same amount as just arcs in the story as a whole. It'll just be the Kamado Tanjiro Unwavering Resolve arc. I just switched the way I said his name because Japanese. And then I'll make a video about the mini arcs within that one. So that means there is a total of 7 arcs that we will be ranking. Now I will be counting all the arcs that have been animated as both, and then of course the ones that haven't will just be manga related. Alright, but let's get into it with number 7. And once again I will say this is kind of like my Hashira list and my Kamaboko Squad list. I love all of these arcs. There is just a few that are better in my brain because they match my desires. I'm trying to articulate this right. But number 7 is the Hashira training arc. Now, the only reason I can say this is my least favorite arc is simply because I'm a girl who likes good action, and Hashira training, while it gives me some, it doesn't give me enough compared to the rest of the arcs. That is the only reason why it is number 7 on this list. I love Hashira training. I really enjoy getting to watch it get animated recently, but just based off of my desires and what I like, I am a girl who loves some good action, so therefore, since it fails in comparison to all of the other arcs when it comes to action, it's in 7. Number 6 is the Kamado Tanjiro Unwavering Resolve arc. And this is just a victim of the fact that all the other arcs are really freaking good, because this is such a good first arc for the show. This does such a good job at developing the story, helping us understand the character motives, helping us understand the way the power system works within, helping us understand the antagonist and his group. It did such a good job that, like, I was super into it. Did I not get obsessed until Entertainment District? Yes. However, it still really, really rocked my world at being a very good show in just one season. Not many shows do that to me. Most of them, I have to be in like season 3, season 4 before I'm even interested in the show, let alone really into it. But Demon Slayer did a really good job at setting up the story super well, making us understand what was going on, and also establishing that we're gonna get some pretty spectacular action scenes throughout the show. Because everything else within the story is so freaking good, this one's just freaking good. Yeah. Coming in at number 5 is the Swordsmith Village arc. Now, I am your biggest Swordsmith Village defender. When it got animated, I could not stand the way people were complaining about the arc, that the demons are just not as good as Entertainment District, that the action wasn't good. I think that simply the Swordsmith Village arc was a victim of the timing in the show. I think that the demons that we fought there actually needed to be before Entertainment District, because I think it would have helped build up to Entertainment District a little bit better, and then it wouldn't have felt like we kind of backtracked. But we didn't backtrack in a way of like quality or anything like that. I think we backtracked in a way where Entertainment District was just so heavily focused on the action that going back to a season that had a lot of action but focused a lot more on development of the characters and the story, people were like, oh, this is boring, it's not as good as Entertainment District, because everything became like, is it as good as Entertainment District? Well, not many things are. Because Entertainment District was insane. I think it was more of a victim of that. I still really enjoyed it, but like I said, I'm a girl who loves good action, so this season, with it being a little bit less heavy on the action, I just didn't find myself enjoying it as much as I enjoyed Entertainment District, but that's just on me. I don't think it was bad writing. I don't think it was a bad adaptation. I think I just was like, you know what? I tend to prefer heavy action. So of course it's going to go behind something like Entertainment District, because that one was just like hardcore for like 5 episodes straight. I will say Swordsmith Village has some of my favorite moments, though, with the Sun Halo Dragon head dance. That's one of my most favorite 30-second sequences in anime ever. It was so cool. And also, it has my second favorite episode in the entire season, with the season finale where Nezuko conquers the sun. I cannot get through that episode without crying still, because I love the Kamado siblings so much, and they did such a freaking good job at animating that. And everything, like the soundtrack, the voice acting, Hanai-san should have won so many awards for what he did in that season finale, and I'm still upset about it. But that was such a good episode, and I do agree that that episode like was way better than most of the others as far as like what I enjoy out of an anime, but I felt like the whole season was really, really well done and really good. It just didn't speak to me in the way that Entertainment District did, again, because I'm a girl who likes good action. Alright, the arc that's coming in at number 4 is going to be Mugen Train. Now, this shouldn't surprise anyone if I'm a girl who likes heavy action that it still is ranked below Entertainment District. Honestly, Entertainment District and Mugen Train are very close to each other, but Entertainment District just edges it out, which I guess that's a spoiler alert, that is number 3, just because of, I don't even know, I think it's just like my experience with the 2 arcs. Entertainment District was when I truly became obsessed with the show, so I look back on that and I think, okay, I must have enjoyed that season a little bit better, just because Mugen Train, while I was into it and I really liked it, it's not when I became obsessed and it became my entire personality. So that's kind of how I gauge it, but Mugen Train was so good. I unfortunately, when it was out in theaters, had not watched the show yet, so I didn't get to experience Mugen Train in the movie theaters. I missed out on that, and actually the first time I watched it was when it was airing episodically, so I didn't even really see the movie until like a year later when I decided to watch it in its original format, which is fine. I don't think I really missed out on anything because I didn't get to see the movie first. I like that I got to see the Rengoku episode first, because I think that meant when the end of Mugen Train happened, I felt a lot more and I sobbed a lot. I think that the Mugen Train arc just did a really good job at developing Tanjiro a lot more too. I know when we think of Mugen Train, like our brains automatically go to Rengoku and Rengoku versus Akaza. I kind of think about the fact that this season, in my opinion, was really about Tanjiro. Because, like, the whole first sequence with, like, the dreaming and everything, like, he got most of the time, which, of course, he's the main character, so of course he would. The sequence against Enmu was heavily focused on him, and then, like, everything with Rengoku, all of my emotions with it kind of had to do with Tanjiro, like, Tanjiro's reaction, Rengoku telling Tanjiro that he believed in Nezuko, like, all of that kind of stuff. So, as a Tanjiro stan, obviously I really, really liked Mugen Train because I see it from that perspective. But you know what? Maybe it's just below Entertainment District because there was a death, and I still am not over it. Which, there's 2 arcs that I haven't talked about yet, but we'll get into that later. So overall, like, Mugen Train was like a 9 out of 10 arc for me. Like, there's nothing that I would really change about it, but just in the list and the grand scheme of things, when it comes back to me wanting to like rewatch a specific season, I would reach for Entertainment District first. And with that, Entertainment District is ranked number 3. Entertainment District truly was when I became obsessed. It's when I picked up the manga. Entertainment District means a lot to me because it's when I started making friends who liked anime. It's when I started to really get into reading manga and getting into being in the fandom of Demon Slayer, which has had its ups and downs like any other fandom would have. But Entertainment District is just very special to me because most of what I can remember about like falling in love with the show is from then. Layered Memories, which is episode 6, which is when Tanjiro has the blood tear moments, that's when I was like, this show is freaking good, and I started watching YouTube videos about it, and I started just being a part of the fandom, and that's like sentimental to me. But also, like, when you look at Entertainment District as a whole, pretty much starting at the end of episode 4 until 10, it's just like non-stop spectacular action. I very much remember one of the scenes where Tengen and Gyutaro is fighting. That was one of the first moments in my life that I was sitting on the edge of my seat watching the TV, and I was like, this is art. This is perfection in an animated show. Like, I can't believe it took me this long to start watching anime, because I've had a few moments like that, close to that with Attack on Titan, but Demon Slayer, that scene was like the first time where I was like, I forgot to read the subtitles. I was just so entranced in like the choreography of these two 2D characters and the way the fluidity of the fight was going. It was just mind-boggling to me. So there were so many moments in Entertainment District where I just became a bigger and bigger fan, and I kind of owe like everything that I do on the internet to this arc, which is kind of doing it a disservice to put it in third, but when I talk about 2 and 1, if you know what the last 2 arcs are, so So overall, Entertainment District gets the number 3 slot. It's my favorite arc that's been animated, obviously, because I've gone through all of the arcs that have been animated, so it was such a good arc. Like, I think everyone kind of agrees. Some people will even say that's the peak of the show as a whole. I don't think it is. I think the ones that are to come are going to be the peak of the show, but my goodness, was that such a good season. Also, it was like Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan Sundays. That was just like peak. That was just peak. I can't believe I just said peak. Alright, now here's where things get a little bit spoilery, because obviously the last 2 arcs that I have to rank have not been animated yet, so if you are not a manga reader and you don't want any type of spoilers, this is where you stop, because I've decided I'm going to go into some pretty in-depth spoilers that I decided throughout making this video, so they're not going to be broad spoilers, there's going to be specific spoilers talking about Infinity Castle and Sunrise Countdown. So again, if you are not a manga reader and you don't want to get spoiled, here's your chance to stop. The only people that should be staying are manga readers or people who don't care about getting spoiled about big things. Alright, with that, number 2 is Infinity Castle. Now, I know this is a bit of a hot take. I will kind of explain why I have Sunrise Countdown ahead of it when I talk about Sunrise Countdown, but there's not much things that I dislike about Infinity Castle. In fact, there's nothing that I dislike about Infinity Castle. I think that this arc is not rushed like a lot of people try to say, and I hope that Ufotable doesn't try to rush it by squeezing it into like 2 movies instead of 3. Infinity Castle, just every single fight, I try and think of a fight that I'm looking forward to the most, and it probably is Akaza versus Tanjiro and Giyu, just because that involves my 2 favorite characters, and when I read the manga, like, that was what had me on the edge of my seat the most until Sunrise Countdown, because I felt so invested since Akaza was a demon that we've already encountered and we've lost people because of. So I also think for anime onlys, they're gonna feel like the most into that battle, just because it feels personal to us, because we feel like we've been there, we feel like we've lost someone, we feel like Tanjiro feels when we watch this fight. I'm really, really looking forward to it. There's a couple moments in that battle specifically that I'm looking forward to, like when Tanjiro sees the see-through world for the first time, when Giyu says, if you want to kill Tanjiro, you'll have to kill me first. I'm... Woo! Giyu-san! Sorry, I'm going a little bit crazy here. But also, like, Kokushibo versus everyone, Doma versus Shinobu, and then Doma versus Kanao and Inosuke. That is going to be big because we're going to get so much development for Kanao and Inosuke. Don't even get me started on the character deaths. I'm not ready. Those ones are harder than the ones that happen in Sunrise Countdown, in my opinion, because it's like we have to keep going. It's not like the end. These characters that are reacting have to stand and keep fighting, and it's absolutely insane. I'm so pumped for this to be in movie theaters. I think this is gonna do numbers better than Mugen Train. That's my big prediction. I think with Demon Slayer being even more popular now than it was back in 2020, Mugen Train came out during COVID. I think that the stars are aligning for Infinity Castle trilogy to be the trilogy of our generation in anime format. I really am looking forward to what that's gonna mean. I think it's gonna kind of jump even more into normie world when it hits movie theaters, because more and more people are going to hear about it and see it. I could see it like getting a Hollywood premiere, like a literal Hollywood premiere. Like, who knows? I think this is going to be pretty crazy, but I'm really looking forward to it. There's just so much about it that I love. I think Infinity Castle just perfectly intertwines action with character development and story development. There's so many things that are going to be revealed. There's so many character backstories that we're going to get, and boy, oh boy, am I just looking forward to seeing it animated. All right, but number one, yes, my number one arc is actually Sunrise Countdown. I know this is a bit of a hot take because even I can say that Sunrise Countdown, reading it, I felt that there were some moments that were rushed, and there were some things that I felt were not actually, I think everything was fleshed out well. I think that everything was, like, closed up. I think the one thing that wasn't, which is, did Sanemi, Gyu, and Tanjiro die at 25? I think they didn't flesh that out simply to leave it up to the interpretation of the audience. I don't think it's canon that they died at 25, because I think it was very clear that Kokushibo didn't really know what he was talking about. Yeah, I think they left that up to be interpreted. I don't think that was like an accidental, oops, I forgot to follow up on that, because that was kind of a big storyline. But Sunrise Countdown is, in my opinion, outside of Avatar: Last Airbender, the best final arc that I've ever seen. And I think UFO Table's going to make it better. I think they're going to add some stuff to make it a little bit more fleshed out and not as rushed as it was in the manga. Just given the circumstances of what Gotoge Sensei was under when they were writing Sunrise Countdown, the fact that they were able to do such a good ending, even though they were rushing to finish because they were going through health issues, because they were going through family issues, is absolutely astounding to me, because there are mangas that ended and they weren't being rushed that, in my opinion, were not as good of an ending as this one. So a couple things that make me love this arc more than Infinity Castle. Number one is going to be the fact that Nezuko plays a pretty big role in it, with her helping her brother come back to them, essentially. That was a big deal. Also, Tanjiro finally switching to Hinokokyu. That's a big moment that I'm gonna freak out over. I think the fight itself, I know a lot of people don't like Muzan's power and found it disappointing. I think in anime format, it's gonna be incredible. Like, we're gonna get just like an entire arc of Entertainment District level fighting, just based off of what they did with Gyome versus Muzan at the end of Hashira Training. I think it's gonna be that for an entire movie or season, however they're going to adapt it. So that I'm really, really looking forward to. I actually think that Muzan's Blood Demon art is really interesting. I felt that him like having so many brains and hearts was really interesting. And also, even though sometimes the poisons and the medicines that Tamayo gave him, I don't really stand in the like, oh, well, that's convenient, because I think that it just showed that Tamayo and Shinobu were so freaking important the entire time, even though they were both long dead. So I really liked that aspect, that they were like still fighting the fight even though they were long gone. Say what you want about it being like, that's convenient that there's just this medicine that helps with the poison, but they have foresight. They kind of knew that Muzan would try that. So I think it showed that people were smart, that people had plans, and it was mostly Tamayo and Shinobu that were that smart. And without them, they wouldn't have won this fight. So I really liked that addition, because it really, truly showed me that the female characters are important to the show, unlike many people try to say, because without them, they would have had no chance. There was literally no chance of them beating Muzan. So I really liked that. And also, again, a controversial take, I really liked Demon King Tanjiro. I thought that if the show had one twist, this would be the kind of twist that it would have, because there was foreshadowing, even like all the way back at the beginning, And Tanjiro says some things where it's like, man, like when he talks to Tamayo and she says like, hey, I could make medicine that could turn her back into a human. And he says something along the lines of like, this could help Nezuko, but this could also help a lot of other people. I was like, yeah, because it's gonna help you too. That was probably foreshadowing on Gotoge's part, because I think they always plan to have Tanjiro turn into a demon at the end. And I think that it made the story feel very real. It felt very real for Muzan to do that, because his whole entire character was that he was super desperate to just live forever, even if it meant living on through someone else. And of course, in his dying moments, he would do something like that. He had Tanjiro in his grasps. Tanjiro was just barely still alive. So of course he would be like, I'm gonna try it. Like, I'm gonna try to live on through this kid, because he is a sun breather, and he's related to Nezuko, who conquered the sun. He probably could conquer the sun, and I could live forever through him. And that made sense. That to me was like, yes, of course Muzan would do that in his dying moments. Of course he would get that desperate that he would try to live on through someone. And of course it would make sense that it was Tanjiro. And of course Nezuko is the only reason why he didn't kill anyone, because she was the only person that could somewhat get through to him in that moment. And of course Kanao is the one that saves him, because she can now make her own decisions because of his influence on her life. I loved this. And it's a controversial take. I know a lot of people didn't like that. I thought it was a really good twist. I was happy because it meant that Tanjiro got to live past the fight, because if he didn't, he would have obviously died, because he was pretty much dead already. And I thought it was really interesting. My only issue with it was I think that we just needed a little bit more time with it, because it was a really big twist. Although I don't think that he could have been a demon for much longer, because then people really would have died. So, and if he had killed anyone, then that's a whole nother can of worms that would have changed the story completely. So I really liked that, and I really liked the end. I wish we got like one time skip with them. I wish we'd gotten a little bit of more, here is Tanjiro and Kanao married, rather than it being like, oh, my great-great-great-grandparents, oh, okay, I guess they got married, that's cool. I wish we'd gotten a little bit more time, and maybe like one chapter just dedicated to them living their lives, although we still kind of got that a year later, because Gotoge wrote like a little side manga chapter, but I really liked it. I really did. I don't really have the complaints that people have outside of like, yeah, it felt rushed at times, but I also kind of understand the circumstances that the author was in. And I say that gives me even more respect for how it ended, because to be able to end a show so well with the situation they were under was really impressive to me. So that's my number one. I could go for hours about why I like it. I'm probably going to talk a little bit about Sunrise Countdown in a video soon, because I think that it deserves a conversation. Really looking forward to doing that. But I think I'm going to stop there. So there's my list. That's my list of arcs for Demon Slayer. I am going to make one about the mini arcs within the first season eventually, and I'm also going to talk about them. If you want me to talk about each one individually in its own video where I can be a little bit more like articulate with my thoughts, because I don't script these videos. I've started scripting some others to just try and make sure that my brain just actually works. I think that's it for today's video. So if you liked today's video, thank you so much. Please like the video and also subscribe to my channel so I can hit my goal of 40k subscribers before the end of the year. You can also turn on the notifications so you get notified whenever I make a new video. Also, you can follow me on all my social media. I am at Looking Nerdy on Instagram, X, and TikTok. But thank you so much for watching today's video. And with that, I say, mata ne!